In a crowded tavern, tavern, where laughter drowns out the weight of war, a single tattoo stops time. Eden Wolf sits alone, her wrist bearing numbers that whisper of sacrifice. 7,312, 842. When a young soldier's careless jest sparks a confrontation, three battle-hardened veterans rise, not with anger but reverence, saluting a mark that carries the ghost of a mission no one speaks of. What kind of scar silences a room? What kind of woman carries a graveyard on her skin? Step into a story of silent heroes, where courage isn't shouted, but etched in ink and memory. Join us as we unravel Eden's tale, a journey of loss, loyalty, and the unbreakable will to protect those who'll never know her name. Touch that tattoo one more time, the seal growled, low and threatening, and you'll be pulling back a broken hand. The tavern froze, chairs scraped against the wooden floor, glasses stilled mid-air. Even the music seemed to choke mid-riff. Every head turned. The young soldier stopped, stunned. He hadn't expected that. The quiet woman sitting alone in the corner, Eden Wolf, had sparked a reaction that cut through the noise like a blade. Now, three hardened SEAL veterans stood between him and the joke he'd just cracked. Their eyes locked on him, jaws clenched like they'd been waiting for a reason. One had already moved a hand toward his sidearm. Another stood so close the soldier could smell the faint burn of cordite and the chill of steel on his breath. The third simply pointed at the ink on Eden's wrist. "That mark," he said, voice low and lethal, "is a graveyard." Seconds later, they saluted her. What kind of tattoo makes trained killers rise and guard like that? What kind of mark turns a rowdy room full of soldiers into silence you can taste? It was Friday night at the Rustwood Tavern, and Rustwood on a Friday was never quiet, never had been. The place throbbed with the sound of guitars, the crack of pool cues, and the kind of laughter that always came just before a fight. Its wooden beams were old, soaked with decades of sweat, beer, and stories that no one dared write down. The air was thick with cigar smoke and testosterone. Soldiers packed the joint from wall to wall, most of them fresh off transport, their boots still dusty from training fields, their bravado louder than the amplifiers. Eden Wolf sat alone in a booth tucked in the far corner. She always chose the shadows, away from bar fights and card games, beneath a flickering lamp that couldn't seem to decide if it wanted to light her face or let her fade into the dark. She didn't care either way. She hadn't come for the crowd. She came for the quiet. Her pint of dark stout sat untouched. Her sleeve was rolled up, not for display or pride, just out of habit. The numbers inked down her wrist weren't bold, weren't flashy. They were utilitarian. Exact. 77312 K8002 inked in sharp black lines beside a fractured triangle, hooded inside a broken gray circle. She didn't glance at them. She didn't need them. They were burned into her memory far deeper than skin. At the center table, a cluster of young soldiers made more noise than the rest. 6 of them, still too fresh to know what real silence felt like. Cigars in hand, laughter in their lungs. One of them, all bravado with a square jaw and sleeves stretched tight over biceps that looked too polished to have seen combat, threw a lazy glance across the room. "Check that out," he said, loud enough to cut through the music. "The loner with the ink. You think that's real?" He leaned back in his chair, waving a beer. "Bet it's her cat's birthday or something." The others cracked up. One of them, already glassy-eyed, squinted across the room. "Nah, man. Gotta be a Wi-Fi password. Like ... ultra top secret Netflix code." The table roared with laughter again. They liked their own noise too much to notice the subtle shift in the room's current. Eden didn't flinch. She never did. Every few months, it was a new bar, a new town, the same script. But tonight, something felt different. She felt it in her gut before it made its way across the floor. From the far end of the tavern, 3 men had gone still mid-conversation. They weren't like the others. Older, quieter, eyes sharp, posture perfect without trying. Captain Roland Shaw, Lieutenant Dana Rock, Major Felix Kwan. SEALs, every one of them. Veterans still carrying missions in their blood. The kind you never wrote down. The kind you carried to your grave. They saw the tattoo, and they froze. "No way," Dana whispered. Her voice caught on something buried deep. That's Operation Silent Rain. Quan finished it for her. Kaddafi Ridge, 2016. That's her. Roland didn't speak. He just stood. At the main table, the brash young soldier wasn't done being loud. He pushed back from his seat, drink in hand, swaggering toward Eden's booth like it was a joke he hadn't finished telling. Hey, he grinned as he approached. So what's it mean, 7312? You get that at a discount ink shop, or is it like your ex's phone number or something? Eden slowly looked up. Her eyes met his. There was no anger in them, no amusement either, just a stillness, a presence that made the air tighten. You wouldn't understand, she said, voice barely above a whisper. He laughed, unbothered. Try me. I'm good with numbers. He reached for her wrist. Behind him, Roland's voice cracked like a thunderclap of cold iron. Touch that tattoo again, he warned, and you'll be pulling back a broken hand. The room halted. Chairs scraped. Glasses froze. The music stumbled, then fell silent. Even the jukebox choked out a final crackle before going dead. The young soldier turned, confused. 3 seals had risen. Roland stepped forward, calm but unshakable. Quain's hand hovered near his weapon. Dana raised hers and pointed. That mark, she said, steady as stone. That's not some joke. That's a graveyard. The soldier blinked. What? Dana didn't blink back. I lost 2 brothers to what that tattoo represents. Silence snapped through the tavern like a whip. Eden exhaled slowly, her hand falling into her lap. The young soldier, all arrogance drained from his face, backed away like a man who just realized he'd been standing on a landmine. He slinked back toward his table, smaller now, quieter. No one laughed anymore. The heat of the room remained, but every back was suddenly chilled. She led the Ember Team, Roland said, voice low, meant only for those who needed to hear. The only one who walked out of that tunnel with the hostages still breathing. From the far corner, a glass dropped and shattered. Someone snapped a photo. The sound of a camera phone click echoed louder than it should have. That image, her face, the tattoo, 3 veterans standing guard, would make its way to a closed forum within minutes. Someone would post it, someone else would recognize it, and soon a comment would appear beneath the image. That code's not dead, it's still active. And then, things would begin again. But for now, in Rustwood, everything stayed still. Eden finally relaxed for her pint and took a long, deliberate sip. You okay? Dana asked softly. Eden nodded. They're just kids. Dana met her gaze. Not after tonight. Outside, the wind howled down the street, brushing past the windows like a warning. For the first time since 2016, Eden Wolf felt something shift in her chest. Something subtle. Something final. Like the line she'd spent years drawing between past and present had just begun to blur. Captain Roland Shaw didn't sit back down. He remained where he was, arms folded across his chest, boots planted firm, like he was waiting for a chopper to land. The room simmered in a hush. Even the jukebox, once roaring with classic rock, now hummed uncertainly, as if unsure it still belonged. The young soldier sat hunched, head down, shame written across his posture. His friends gave him space. No one wanted to catch what he'd stepped in. Eden said nothing. She never did, unless it mattered. A waitress approached, cautiously. You folks all right? She asked. Roland glanced at her. We're good, just a little misunderstanding. But the waitress lingered. Her eyes dropped to Eden's wrist. You know what that means? She asked, voice hushed. My cousin served. Told me once, if you ever see numbers like that, best not to ask. Before Eden could answer, Dana spoke. Your cousin's right. The waitress gave a sharp nod and disappeared into the back. At the center table, the younger soldiers whispered among themselves. One of them, the most fidgety, pulled out his phone and typed the numbers into a search bar. Nothing. No public records, no military database, no wiki page. Of course, nothing would show. Nothing legitimate ever would. But as his screen refreshed, something strange began to load. It started quietly, an anonymous post buried in an obsolete thread on an abandoned forum. Just a string of characters. 7,312 K842. If you knew what it meant, you didn't speak of it. Somewhere in the Rustwood Tavern, a young soldier stared at his phone, his thumb trembling above the screen. Then he locked it and slid the device into his pocket. Across the bar, a man had been watching. Silent, still. He wasn't drinking, wasn't one of the SEALs. Just a lean, weathered figure hunched in a shadowy booth, wrapped in a field jacket, faded by time and boots too clean for anyone claiming retirement. His name was Alan Marquez, once a CIA liaison embedded with forward ops in the Horn of Africa. He hadn't expected to see her here. Marquez leaned forward. His eyes narrowed as they fixed on the shape of a tattoo. He slipped a hand into his coat, pulled out a notebook beaten soft with age, and flipped it to a dog-eared page. There it was again, 7312 K842. That same code was last traced during the disastrous Kaddafi Ridge mission, long presumed fatal. The entire Ember team had been declared KIA, and yet Eden Wolf was here, alive, breathing, and just like back then, saying nothing. Marquez stood without a word, left a bill on the table, and vanished down a hallway. Back in the corner, 3 SEALs took their seats around Eden. She raised her glass to her lips and drank. Her fingers were steady, no tremor. "You could have walked away," she murmured to Roland, not even looking at him. Her eyes followed a stray puppy that had just pissed on a battlefield memorial outside the tavern window. "No thanks," Felix Kwan chuckled. Then he caught himself. "Sorry, reflex." Eden's mouth curved ever so slightly. "I remember. You always laughed when the pressure hit hardest. Still do." Dana Rock leaned in, her voice lower. "Why here, Eden? Why now?" Eden didn't respond right away. Her eyes lingered on an old dartboard on the wall, its glass cracked, its reflection haunted. Finally, she said, "I got tired of hiding, tired of watching kids wear uniforms without understanding what any of it means." Roland nodded. "You picked one hell of a place to remind them." Eden's fingers trailed the rim of her glass. Her voice dropped further. "Someone's digging. I can feel it. There's chatter online, encrypted stuff pinging through old dead channels. Ember's name keeps surfacing. It's not just war stories from old vets. It's new flags, new targets." The room stilled. The SEALs didn't move. "How sure are you?" Felix asked. "Sure enough," Eden replied, "that when those kids laughed at my wrist, I thought, maybe it's time they understood what it hit them." Silence settled in. Not the tense kind, the heavy kind. The kind where truths hang like weight in the air. Outside, wind howled against the tavern walls. The forgotten TV behind the bar suddenly flickered to life. Breaking news. The bartender turned up the volume. "A coordinated attack against a UN convoy near Mogadishu has been intercepted in its early stages," sources say. The cell involved is believed to be a remnant of a once neutralized faction, long dormant since the 2016 Silent Rain offensive. A coldness swept through the tavern. On-screen satellite footage showed a convoy being rerouted. Then a blurry insignia emerged, jagged, dark, grainy. Every SEAL in the room inhaled at once. Dana stood. "That's Ember. That's your unit's mark." Eden didn't respond. One of the younger soldiers at another table whispered, "It's the same shape as her tattoo." The connection, once only a suspicion, was now real. Audible. Irrefutable. Eden set her glass down. "Now you understand why I don't explain," she said softly. Just then, a sharp gust blasted open the front door. It slammed back against the frame, empty. No one stood there, just an open doorway to wind and dust. Yet the room suddenly felt watched. Marquez was already gone, slipping out the side alley, dialing numbers no one else could trace. In her corner booth, Eden reached into her coat. The whole room tensed. But it wasn't a weapon, just a coin, dented, scarred. The same numbers etched into its surface as the tattoo on her skin. She spun it on the table. The sound echoed in the quiet. "If they're coming back," she said, her voice flat, unwavering, "then we don't wait." Roland leaned forward. "You want to rebuild Ember?" Eden looked at him, not surprised, not stirred, just resolute. "Not rebuild," she said, "finish what we started." Somewhere beyond Rustwood, a signal pinged. Encrypted, received, acknowledged. The TV screen flickered again, replaying the footage. That jagged triangle within a fractured circle. It wasn't just a mark, it was a specter. The young soldiers weren't laughing anymore. Their drinks sat untouched. Their eyes flicked from Eden's tattoo to the looping TV feed, and then to the three seals surrounding her like silent sentries. Eden spun the coin again. Let it clatter, let it stop. If they're coming back, she repeated, then we don't wait. Roland's eyes didn't leave hers. His elbows rested on the table, his body leaned forward like he was back in a Black Hawk under fire, like nothing else in the world existed but this moment. You said chatter, he asked. How much? Enough to trace a pattern, she answered. Old safe houses lighting back up, shell accounts moving money. I don't know who's behind them, but someone is. Dana crossed her arms behind Eden, her jaw tight. And the symbol, it's not just reappearing, it's being used. Felix swirled the foam in his beer glass. I thought Ember was buried, he muttered. Us, our story. Eden didn't blink. Buried things don't stay buried when you leave them unfinished. Behind the bar, the news kept running. Another image flashed on screen. A convoy of armed trucks kicking up dust near the Somali border. Pause it, Roland said. The bartender hesitated, then reached for the remote. The screen froze. There, on the side panel of one vehicle, a faded message sprayed in red, K842. Felix's grip turned white around his glass. That's not a coincidence. Eden nodded. It's a message. For us. Silence fell again. The soldier who had laughed earlier rubbed his temples, as if remembering a nightmare too late to escape. I didn't know, he mumbled to no one in particular. Eden didn't acknowledge him. Her eyes shifted to Roland. I need access. Secure comms. Old contact lists. Names no one's touched in years. You think they'll respond? Not to me, she said, raising her sleeve, revealing the full tattoo, not just the triangle and numbers, but a ring of initials, call signs, and names. Some gone, some still breathing. Those who had walked into Kaddafi Ridge. Only 4 had made it out. 1 had vanished. The rest had been entombed under 300 feet of collapsed rock. Their story never released. Their sacrifice never honored. They'll come, Eden whispered. If they see it, they'll know it's real. Dana took 1 step forward. Then we don't waste time. 2 hours later, Rustwood Tavern was almost empty. The bartender had locked the front door. Outside, the wind swept across the broken lamplight, stirring up dust, cigarette butts, and torn papers, sending them skating across the cracked sidewalk like ghosts of a forgotten war. Inside the dimly lit tavern, the seals huddled tightly around Eden. At the back of the room, they had cleared a table, laying out a battered sat phone, an old signal booster, and a hardened military tablet. Felix Kwan, ever the tech brain of the group, was already hunched over it, fingers flying. It took him only minutes to pierce through the encrypted layers of their long-dead network, one they were no longer supposed to have access to. We're ghosts, Felix muttered, barely loud enough for anyone to hear. No one watches for ghosts. With a final keystroke, he sent the transmission, a burst of pulsed, triple encrypted signals. 7312K, 842. Active, code black, Wahom, key. Then silence. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Just as the tension was starting to solidify in the room, the screen blinked. Received, acknowledged. Then a third response. Racking, 7312K842. Prepare for regroup. The clock starts at 0. You lead. H. Eden stared at the signature. A single letter, just H. Her voice barely carried the name. Helix! Roland's head snapped up. He's alive? Dana frowned, her jaw tight. If Helix is back on comms, this is bigger than just payback. Eden's gaze swept the room. Her voice was calm, but something deeper stirred beneath it. Resolve. Then we start digging. Every survivor, every contact. We don't surface until we're ready. No one else knows. Felix already had a map open, the screen glowing faintly. Where's the breach? Without missing a beat, Eden tapped the screen. Galmud, old Soviet fort, supposedly abandoned, but funding trails keep circling that area. It's central, it's a hub. We'll need speed, Roland added. If they're reactivating, they won't stay hidden for long. Outside, a black SUV glided past without headlights. Inside Rustwood Tavern, no one noticed. An hour later, a car pulled up to the alley behind the bar. A woman stepped out, military boots, worn civilian jeans, a field jacket zipped up to her chin. She didn't knock, just walked straight in. Her eyes scanned the room, sharp and searching, before landing on Eden. "Wolf," she said. Eden stood, slowly. "Bishop," she replied. "Captain Lee Bishop, former sniper. Ember's silent ghost arm, officially KIA after the Silent Rain operation. But now she stood there, alive. "You lit the beacon," Bishop said. "Hope you're ready for what comes with it." "We don't light it unless it's already coming," Eden answered. They held each other's gaze for a moment, then embraced. Tight, short, the kind of hug only soldiers give, compressed with memory, loaded with pain. "How many more?" Roland asked, breaking the silence. Bishop pulled a flash drive from her coat and tossed it onto the table. "3 confirmed en route, 2 haven't answered. One's flagged in an arms deal between Djibouti and Yemen." Dana's brow furrowed. "Flagged?" Bishop nodded grimly. "Presumed turned." Felix let out a sharp breath. "Who?" Bishop hesitated. "Falcon." The air shifted. It felt like a storm cloud had descended into the room. Falcon, Ember's demo lead, the most tactical of them. If he'd turned, Eden picked up the coin again, her fingers curling around it like she was trying to crush it. "If he's alive," she said, quiet but resolute, "we bring him back, or we put him down." No one disagreed. A knock came from the door, 3 short, 2 long, then 1. A pause, then again. Eden's eyes narrowed. "That's the Ember signal." She moved to the door, opened it. 3 more figures stepped inside. Reed, Vance, Darabau, ghosts, all of them. But the moment they entered Rustwood, the air came alive with a forgotten fire. It wasn't nostalgia, it was purpose. Eden stood first. Reed, Vance, Darbo. They didn't smile, just nodded. Reed was tall, lean, his fatigue still sharp, but his boots worn from long road miles. Vance was broader, built like a moving wall, his shoulders stiff with war still clinging to his frame. Darabau, the comms expert, had a compact duffel strapped across his chest. Near the zipper, a single patch, K842. "No handshakes?" Vance muttered. "Still breathing, that counts." "Got your signal," Dar said. "Didn't think I'd ever see it again." Eden motioned to the table. Roland stood to make room. The others followed. 8 ghosts now sat under a flickering bulb, surrounded by peeling walls and memory. Felix brought up the map again. Darabau leaned forward immediately, tapping 2 coordinates. "These towers are new. Satellite blind spots. Someone's masking transmissions. We never needed this kind of interference during the first ops." Dana turned to Eden. "What's the play?" Eden's fingers brushed the coin again. It had passed through more battles than she could count. "We confirm the Galmud base, map their structure, figure out who's funding this, and cut the snake off at the head." Reed leaned back, arms folded. "And if Falcon is the head?" Silence followed. Heavy, Eden's voice cut through it. "Then we finish it." No hesitation. "Agreed," Roland said. Outside, another pair of cars rolled by, lights off. Inside, Darabau opened his duffel and pulled out an old satellite relay. He patched it into Felix's booster. The light blinked green. "I've got cross chatter," Dar said. "Encrypted, Spectre 9 cipher." Felix's brow arched. "Spectre 9? That's not just rogue, that's black level." "Someone's pumping serious money into this," Dar said. "And they're getting ready to move." Roland leaned forward. "Targets?" "They're pinging East African ports. Weapon-grade cargo disguised as humanitarian shipments." "Then we hit the shipments in transit," Bishop said. Eden nodded. "We split. 2 teams, one on Galmud, one on the port corridor." Dana spread out a second map. "I'll run the port route. I know the corridors through Merca." "I'm going with her," Vance added. "She'll need cover." "Bishop and I will take Galmud," Eden said. "It's our old ground." Roland looked around the room. Then Quan, Reed, and Darab, intel ops from Nairobi. "Quiet base. If this escalates, we need global distance." "Done," Reed said, already tapping coordinates into his pad. As the plan snapped into place, something shifted. It wasn't comfort. It wasn't even hope. It was focus. Purpose. For the first time since 2016, they moved like a unit again. One last thing, Dar said, tapping a waveform. There's voice ID on a few of the encrypted bursts. Listen. He hit play. Static. Then a voice. You shouldn't have come back. But now that you have, let's finish it right. Everyone froze. The voice. Falcon. It settled like frost in the room. He knows we're moving, Dana muttered. He wants us to, Eden replied. Outside, thunder cracked, not from the sky, but from something more ancient, like steel on steel, like a freight train across a buried track. 3 hours later, Eden and Bishop boarded a civilian transport under false names. The gear was minimal. Civilian clothes over armor, burner phones, cash. Eden carried the coin, and the original Ember manifest. Every name cleared for the 2016 mission. Some names were crossed out, others underlined. Mid-flight, Bishop asked quietly, You really think Falcon turned? Eden didn't answer right away. He was loyal, she said eventually, but something in him broke. We all broke at the ridge, Eden said softly, her voice carrying a quiet weight. But some of us managed to put the pieces back together. Some let others do it for them. Bishop let out a long, weary breath. If I have to put him down, we both will. Back in Merca, Dana and Vance had already reached the outskirts of the port city. Disguised as humanitarian aid workers, they moved cautiously. The docks were crawling with militia, not in uniform but unmistakably armed, and their weapons were pristine. Too pristine. See that? Dana muttered under her breath, nodding subtly. Those suppressors, they're U.S. model. No aid group runs that kind of gear. These guys are smugglers, military-backed smugglers. They stayed in the shadows, watching as containers were loaded into unmarked trucks. Vance tapped his phone once discreetly. The signal traveled across borders in seconds, landing in Nairobi. Felix, Kwan, and Darabao picked it up immediately. Confirmed, Kwan said. Shipment is on the move. They've got a clean corridor, fake IDs, forged border passes, the works. Whoever's coordinating this, they've got access, real clearance, and it's coming from high up. Reed looked up from his laptop, his expression dark. They're not hiding anymore. They're daring us to come, and we will. Kwan's tone sharpened. At dawn. Aden and Bishop landed quietly near the remnants of Galmudug. Once a Soviet-era concrete fortress, the place now looked like a ghost, abandoned, coated in dust, hollow. But as they moved closer, Eden's instincts prickled. This wasn't as lifeless as it seemed. There's movement, Bishop whispered, too structured to be scavengers. 2 guards, Eden noted. Sniper nest at the West Ridge, barely camouflaged. They're active. They melted into the rocks, crawling low and silent, every motion timed to the rhythms of the wind. As the sun climbed higher, the old fort came into view, rebuilt from the inside. Wires ran overhead. Satellite dishes pointed skyward. Guards with blank uniforms patrolled in calculated precision. Falcon's building something here, Bishop muttered, his voice tight. Eden's jaw clenched. Then we take it down. Miles behind them, inside a shadowy Nairobi safe house, Darabao's monitor flared with fresh intel. A new operation. A date. A target. It wasn't defensive anymore. Falcon was about to strike first. The outer walls of Galmudug's base bore the scars of old wars, cracked concrete, scorched metal. But the silence that surrounded it now felt different. It was too still, too precise, controlled. Eden crouched behind a broken slab of concrete, Bishop just beside her. Their eyes followed the rotating patterns of the patrols with surgical focus. 2-minute intervals, Bishop murmured. No comms chatter, all hand signals. That's military protocol, not mercenary freelancing. Eden gave a slight nod. Falcon's rebuilt with structure. He's not hiding, he's staging. Below them within the compound, men worked with swift coordination, hauling crates, unloading steel containers, welding reinforcements to thick bunker doors. The symbol was everywhere, the old broken triangle inside a gray circle. But now it had evolved. The cracks were flared with red edges, like flame. They've rebranded the insignia, Bishop said, voice low, and they were proud of it. Eden adjusted her camera's scope, taking a series of rapid shots, 20 in total. Documentation, evidence. Once we confirm what's inside those crates, she said, we ghost out. We're not prepped for a breach, Bishop reminded her. Not yet, she replied with a slight smirk. Still the optimist, he muttered. Just as she lifted the lens again, her earpiece buzzed. Darabal's voice cracked through. Package just moved. Truck convoy heading south. Live update from the port team. Target confirmed. Advanced guidance modules. Eden's stomach sank. Those don't hit the market unless someone's prepping for long-range launch capability, Bishop said, voice grim. He's not just resurrecting Ember, Eden whispered. He's weaponizing it. Back on the East African coast, Dana and Vance tailed the convoy across the outer hills. Their vehicle kept pace, moving along rough jungle roads, parallel to the trucks. The convoy was hidden under tarps and painted with faded humanitarian logos, but it was all theater. The men riding shotgun wore tactical vests and cradled AR-pattern rifles. 5 trucks, Dana counted under her breath. That's enough gear to destabilize half a region. Vance raised his binoculars, scanning. 4 crates per truck. If those really are guidance modules, we're not looking at small-scale raids. This is a missile grid. Boss Dana Keeter, Mike. Nairobi team. Cross-reference those container IDs with known fraudulent manifests. In Nairobi, Felix Kwan was holed up in a dim hotel room, laptop screens casting a pale glow. Running it now. Wait, these serials match a charity organization that folded 3 years ago. They've been repurposed on 5 continents already. Darabal let out a quiet curse. They're building a global delivery system. Back in Galmudug, Eden and Bishop began a silent withdrawal, carefully memorizing every possible exit route. But as they curved along the ridge, something changed. A bird call pierced the air, sharp, too precise. Down, Eden snapped. They dropped just as the first bullet sliced through the air above them. A suppressed sniper round. The shot cracked into the stone behind them with a deadly thwack. More followed. They've got Overwatch, Bishop growled. We missed one. Eden scanned the area through her scope. Northwest ridge. Ness dug into the rusted radio tower. Bishop pulled her suppressed sidearm and handed Eden a folded mirror. Cover me! Eden shifted, popping off a quick diversion shot. Bishop moved with lethal efficiency, crawling at a steep angle, circling wide. 30 seconds. 50. Then, pop. Silence. Eden held her breath. Bishop's voice returned over comms. Nest cleared. Eden exhaled. Good kill. Not good, Bishop said, just necessary. They continued their descent, taking care not to retrace their original path. As they moved through thick brush, Bishop caught a glimpse of something half-buried, an unmarked crate. They opened it. Inside, hundreds of identical black steel coins, each engraved with a number, 7312K842. Recruits, Eden murmured. This is initiation. He's mass-producing identity. Bishop turned a coin in his gloved hand. You ever feel like we started something we never finished? No, Eden said firmly. We finished it. He just couldn't live with the ending. That night, back in the Nairobi safe house, 8 members of the reassembled Ember Team sat around a table in heavy silence. The recon images from Galmudug flickered across a large screen. In the center of the table sat one of the black coins. Reed broke the silence. This isn't a rogue cell. It's a movement. Military structure, he continued. Distributed logistics. Psychological branding. Felix Kwan added, it's strategic, highly. Bishop folded her arms. We've got 2 weeks, maybe less, before those launch modules reach operational range. Dana leaned forward, voice steady. We either strike Galmudug directly or intercept the trucks before they disappear into rogue zones. Eden stood slowly. We do both. Everyone turned to look at her. 2 teams, she said. One breaches Galmudug. Take out infrastructure, secure intel. The other intercepts the convoy. We cut both ends. Roland Shaw gave a solemn nod. It's risky. But if we hit simultaneously, they won't have time to fall back. Vance asked the question no one wanted to voice. And if Falcon's there? Eden's eyes held no fear. Then I end it, personally. The room fell quiet. Reed glanced up from his terminal. Then we move. Fast. Because we're not the only ones preparing. At that very moment, on the edge of Galmudug, deep inside a dim command room reinforced by steel, A figure stood alone in front of a wall of glowing monitors. Falcon. His beard was neatly trimmed now, his uniform was black, and his eyes were ready. The freshly stitched triangle insignia stood out on his chest, threads still taut with newness. One of his lieutenants approached, keeping his voice low. Surveillance nest been neutralized. Our scouts didn't return. Falcon didn't turn around. His eyes remained locked on a grainy, still image captured earlier that day. They'll come, he murmured, his voice void of surprise. That's what they do. The image was of her, Eden Wolf. You think I forgot, he whispered, almost as if speaking to her face. But I never did. He reached into his desk drawer, retrieving a weathered, scratched coin, the original. The edges were dulled, the face faded from years of wear. He wrapped his fingers tightly around it, the metal pressing into his palm like a relic of a broken vow. Let's finish this, he said under his breath. The wind swept across the Galmadog plains with a strange mix of searing heat and deafening silence. At the break of dawn, the desert shifted its color, burnt amber melting into a dull, weary ash gray. Somewhere far from satellites and outside the authority of governments, two convoys moved in opposite directions across the scorched land, invisible and unsanctioned. Team Ember had officially disappeared from every grid. Eden Wolf stood next to an old flatbed truck cloaked in rust, refashioned to look like a water tanker. Her attire was inconspicuous, dust-stained utility pants, a sun-faded black t-shirt, hair tucked under a modest headscarf. Civilian on the outside, beneath the surface she carried a legacy of old scars and newly forged resolve. Opposite her, Captain Roland Shaw was making precise adjustments to the sights of a suppressed carbine. His eyes never wandered. Single strike team, he said, 4 hours. We breach, extract, and take down the core. Eden nodded. Her voice was low but unwavering. No one left behind, and no mercy for what stands in our way. A few feet away, Bishop silently slid compact detonators into Eden's gear pack. You think Falcon's actually in there? He's watching, Eden replied. If he has any sense left, he'll run. He won't, Roland cut in. He built this. Men like that don't run from the temples they carved in their own names. 200 kilometers south, Lieutenant Dana Rock and Vance rode in silence inside a modified aid truck, trailing a munitions convoy. Their vehicle was cloaked under the guise of a UN food transport, complete with fake emblems and falsified paperwork. Counterfeit IDs were tucked securely inside their boots, invisible to any quick inspection. But their eyes missed nothing. Every shadow, every fork in the road was a possible threat. ETA on intercept? Dana asked through the encrypted comms line. Darabao's voice crackled through the static. 2 hours. Convoy splits in 30. After that, they'll scatter across 3 borders. It's now or never. Vance loaded armor-piercing rounds into his modular rifle, each click deliberate. Let's go hunting. Back in Nairobi, in a pitch-black room buried beneath the ground, Major Felix Kwan sat hunched forward, his face illuminated only by glowing monitors. Streams of data flowed across screens in half a dozen languages. Movement alerts, supply transactions, payment trails, names resurfacing in code. Every feed whispered, danger. Then one monitor turned red, an incoming transmission. From a dormant Ember channel, coded, buried, presumed long dead. Kwan hesitated, then opened it. Audio only. 4 words. She's walking into fire. Then silence. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He pinged Eden's unit. Heads up. You've been flagged. Internal source. Someone inside knows your position. Eden's expression didn't shift. Then we move faster. Galmadog. T-2 hours. The strike team advanced through crumbling ruins and skeletal remnants of what had once been Soviet infrastructure. The buildings were ghost-like, hollow and sharp-edged, their purpose lost to time. Eden, Roland, and Bishop fanned into a tight triangle formation. Their entry point, a ruptured maintenance tunnel once used for clandestine supply drops. Inside, the air grew colder, narrower. New copper wiring snaked along rusted rebar. The scent of old oil and industrial decay lingered thick. Multiple heat signatures, Bishop whispered, eyes on her scanner. At least 20 guards. 2 other groupings. One's logistics, one deeper, heavily fortified. Eden's voice was quiet but certain. Falcon. Two guards passed close. Roland moved like a shadow, choking one into silence. Eden followed, stunning the second with swift efficiency. No sound, no mess. They moved to the logistics room first. Inside, crates lined the walls, guidance systems, targeting software, encrypted data drives. Bishop immediately began data extraction. 10 minutes, she said. Eden's gaze locked onto a crate marked with the same grain identifiers they'd traced back in Merca. The trail ended here. This was the origin. Then, clapping, slow, deliberate, a mockery. Falcon stepped from the shadows. His hair was streaked gray now, skin paler, but the authority in his stance was undiminished. A ghost returned to his altar. Eden Wolf, he said as if he'd summoned her. I was wondering how many ghosts it would take before you showed up yourself. Roland's gun leveled. You're outnumbered. Falcon smirked. Odds never mattered. Only the endgame does. Bishop moved to the left. Drop it. You're finished. He didn't even look at her. You know what I learned after Kaddafi Ridge? No one's coming to save us. No one ever was. We die alone, unless we build something so big, so undeniable they're forced to pay attention. You built a death cult, Eden said. Her voice didn't shake. Using the names of the ones we lost. I built continuity, Falcon snapped. You walked away. I stayed. They followed. Eden lowered her weapon just slightly. Then tell them to leave. End this now. Falcon paused. No, but I'll give you the same offer I gave the others. Walk away. Let history sort out the rest. I'll be the ghost they never see coming. Bishop let out a bitter laugh. You seriously want her to join you after this? Falcon's eyes never left Eden. She already did. Once. There was a silence then, hanging in the stale air. Eden reached into her pocket, pulled out the coin, the same one Falcon had held, and tossed it to the floor. Not anymore. Falcon moved. So did they. The firefight erupted, fast and vicious. Roland took down 2 guards in seconds. Bishop killed the lights, plunging the room into tactical shadow. Eden flanked Falcon, driving him back toward a narrow fallback corridor. He retreated into a side chamber. A blast door slammed shut behind him. Fall back, Eden yelled. Secondary route. They regrouped at the logistics hub. Bishop grabbed the extracted drive. We've got it. Blow the core and get out. Eden stared at the sealed door. Her voice was low. Next time. Southern Intercept Zone. Dana and Vance struck. Spike strips shredded the lead truck's tires. Smoke grenades rolled under axles. Gunfire lit the dusk. Vance dropped 3 targets in rapid succession. Dana flanked the center vehicle, popped a flashbang, and breached with purpose. Inside, 4 modules, intact. She tagged them. Packages secured, transmitting now. Back in Nairobi, Quan confirmed the coordinates. Extraction inbound, 30 minutes, hold position. Vance reloaded. They'll send backup. Dana didn't flinch, eyes sharp on the rising dust. Let them. Back at Galmadog, Eden's team planted the charges. Base structures, load-bearing beams, fuel lines. Roland set the timers. Bishop kept rear guard. Dead. 2 minutes, Roland said. This place goes dark. They neared the exit tunnel. Eden halted. On a crumbling wall, spray-painted in cracked red with a message. We end in fire. She stared for a heartbeat, then kept walking. They crossed the ridge. Behind them, the compound detonated into an orange firestorm, the sky swallowing its roar. The triangle emblem, once Falcon's badge of loyalty, was reduced to ash by the very ambition that gave it life. Falcon had escaped, but his sanctuary was gone. Eden didn't slow. Round 1's over, she said. Now we hunt. Behind her, Bishop gave a cold smile. Let's finish the war they never saw coming. That night, after Galmadog burned, the world felt eerily quiet. Eden Wolf sat alone on the roof of the Nairobi safe house, her legs stretched out, arms resting on her knees, the wind gently playing with her scarf. Below her, the city moved on. Streetlights flickered. Radios played. Children laughed somewhere in the distance, unaware that something had just changed forever. The world still wore a mask of peace, but laughter only survived in scattered pockets. No one knew war had quietly reignited. Behind Eden, footsteps approached. Bishop appeared, saying nothing as she settled beside her. "We hit his base hard," she said, "crippled the supply chain, exposed his mark to every major intelligence channel." Eden remained still. "You should be smiling." "We didn't get him," Eden replied after a moment. Her voice was low but resolute. "We will." She turned slightly, and Bishop caught the look in her eyes. This wasn't command from a distant leader. This was personal. "You think he's already moving?" Bishop asked. Eden gave a slow nod. "He knew we'd strike Galmud. He let us." That same night, across the border in a nameless city, so obscure it had evaded most official maps, Falcon stood deep beneath the ground in a shadow command center. It mirrored the one Eden had just destroyed, but this place had been built not to control, but to vanish. A lieutenant stepped forward. "The Nairobi breach team is under surveillance. Comms are dirty. There's a leak." Falcon's eyes darkened. "Who?" "We're narrowing it down. The signal originated from their comms relay. Same coordinates as the Nairobi safe house." "Ma!" Falcon faced a pitch-black screen. "Show me." The screen flickered to life, a single pulse, silent, encrypted, but unmistakably embedded with old Ember tech. Falcon's mouth curled into something darker than a smile. "One of them still remembers who gave them purpose." The next morning, Durab burst into the Nairobi ops room, satellite phone in hand, his face drained of color. "We've been burned." Felix, seated at a comms array, looked up sharply. "What?" "The Nairobi safe house pinged 3 ghost servers overnight. 2 traced back to Falcon's old network. He's watching us. He knew our layers, bypassed them." Eden walked in just in time to catch the tail end of Durab's words. Her voice was calm, cold. "That means he's got eyes on our fallback." "Worse," Durab added. "Someone here sent a ping out. Last night." The room fell silent. Felix whispered, "A mole." Eden turned to the encrypted access board. "Who had clearance to the secure comm layer?" Felix read the list aloud. "Darbo, Quan, Bishop, Vance, Reed." Bishop raised an eyebrow. "Run the logs." It only took minutes. One console lit up red, a side unit accessed during the Galmudog strike. "That's Reed's access ID," Quan said, his voice low. Eden's jaw clenched. "Where is he now?" "Left 2 hours ago. Said he was verifying contact with Helix." "We haven't had contact with Helix," Eden replied. "No one's heard anything beyond his one-line signature." Bishop slid her sidearm free. "Then Reed just painted targets on every one of us." Reed stood alone in a dusty border town square, civilian-clad, his ember coin hanging like an anchor around his neck. His eyes swept the narrow alleys. A girl no older than 16 approached, dressed like a street vendor. She slipped him a sealed envelope and disappeared without a word. Inside, coordinates, a flash drive, a single line of tight, angled script. "Trust is the deadliest illusion. The war never ended. It just changed names. Finish what we started." Below that, a line of Ember code. RZ-17Xville ready. South Bastion 0600. Reed slid the drive into his boot, faded into the crowd, and vanished. Back in Nairobi, urgency overtook the Ember team. Ian and Bishop packed without words. Felix and Darab shredded the local servers. Vance and Dana swept the perimeter. Eden's tone was ice. "Evac in 40, new safe houses across the Gulf, split the team, burn our digital footprint." "Reed compromised our sequence," she continued. "Falcon knows how we route now." "We still have leverage," Bishop reminded her. "The Galma data drive." Eden shook her head. "It's valuable, but if Reed passed intel to Falcon, he already knows what we took. He'll recalibrate." Darab looked up. "Then we stop running. We bait him." Everyone turned toward him. "Leak a fragment. Make it look like we're negotiating an arms deal with a rogue cell. Loud, messy." Eden considered. "He won't send an army. He'll send someone close." Dana nodded. "We flip them or follow them." Felix added, "It'll have to be messy, with contradictions, intentional gaps." "I'll write it," Darab offered. "I know how Falcon thinks." By nightfall, the Ember team had repositioned to a high-altitude pass near the Gulf. Rugged terrain, sheer drops, razor stone, but perfect for an ambush. Darab fired off the false signal. Within hours, the bait was picked up. Felix monitored the chatter. He bit, he said. One of his inner circle. Call sign confirmed. New identity, Bishop muttered. Real name unknown. Ran the Merca border ops. Lethal. Eden locked a round into her carbine. Then she knows our rhythm. At 0200, headlights slithered through the pass. A single vehicle. 3 men. 1 woman in the back. Black hair, tight gear, motion like a coiled blade. Cinder, Bishop said. Cinder was out first, sweeping the rocks with hawk-like precision. They're not here, she muttered. Maybe a decoy. She paused. No, this is a trap. She spun, too late. Bishop's dart silenced the first escort. Dana took the second. Cinder reached for her sidearm, but Eden was behind her. Don't, Eden warned. We need you conscious. Cinder sneered. Slower than you used to be. Eden's elbow cracked against her gut. Cinder collapsed, wheezing. The team swarmed, restrained her, and disappeared into the ridgeline hideout. Hours later, Cinder sat bound in the dark, blood drying at the edge of her mouth. Eden stood in front of her. Talk. Kill me. No, you're going to walk me to your ghost king. Cinder let out a laugh. He'll kill me for failing. Then help us make it count. A flicker of doubt crossed her face. Bishop entered, holding a tablet. We've got your comm logs, signal patterns. We can trace them. Stay silent, you vanish. Speak, and you live. It's basic math. Well, Cinder lifted her gaze. And if I lead you to him, Eden stepped forward, then you'll see what justice looks like. A long pause. You're going to need a boat, Cinder whispered. Far from there, Reed stood alone on a cliff, watching freighters crawl through ocean mist. The flash drive was gone, but his mission wasn't. He tapped his earpiece once. They're coming, said a voice. Let them, Reed replied. We're ready. The boat cut silently through the pre-dawn surf, the engine's hum buried beneath waves crashing against the East African coast. Eden stood at the bow, still as steel, silhouetted beneath a sky-bruised purple-gray. Her fingers curled tightly around the railing. Behind her, Bishop did a final check on their gear. Navigation says 2 hours out. You sure about this? Eden didn't turn. Cinder didn't blink when she gave the name. Vrail, an island you won't find on any map. That's where Falcon's hiding. Darbo, crouched by the comms crate, glanced up. We're sailing into a ghost zone. Last signal bounce from that direction ended in static and scorched circuits. Satellite, Eden said. Exactly, she added, her voice low but sure. He's hiding in the one place no one would think to look twice. Cinder had been secured below deck. No one had trusted her enough to let her stay topside, not after everything. Still, she hadn't resisted since the takedown. Her final words before boarding continued to echo through Eden's thoughts. He built Vrail for one purpose, the ending. Hours passed before land appeared, sharp cliffs encircling dense jungle, a ring of rock and greens so rugged it would be impossible to approach without knowing the local waters. Bishop kept the vessel wide of the visible coastline, steering toward a narrow inlet masked behind ancient limestone ridges. The water turned unnaturally calm, the kind of stillness that made your skin prickle. Darabao stared at the sonar. This isn't right, he muttered. No echo past 70 meters. That's too deep. Looks artificial. They killed the engine and drifted in on silence. Eden lifted her binoculars, eyes scanning the inland. What she saw wasn't a cluster of huts or temporary shelters. They were hardened structures, built to last, expertly camouflaged. We're looking at a military-grade hideout, she said. The team anchored and slipped ashore with methodical precision. 4 operatives who had once vanished into the wars of the past now returning as ghosts in the foliage. The jungle closed in immediately, dense with moisture and crawling with insects. It wasn't long before they found signs, boot prints, tire ruts, brush torn away by movement. This place is active, Bishop murmured, very active. By late afternoon, they reached the ridge, and what they saw stunned them. The facility was carved into the heart of the island itself, a hidden citadel, multiple access points, towering antennas masked by tree canopies. Solar arrays blended into false foliage. It wasn't just a base, it was Falcon's fortress. Darabao exhaled slowly. This isn't a hideout, it's a command center. Eden brought her rifle up, peering through the scope. 6 roving patrols, Infrared systems, possibly drones. Bishop touched her arm. Movement, incoming. They ducked just as a patrol vehicle rolled beneath the ridge, a black, armored transport with no license plates, its fender scarred with a fractured triangle etched into the metal. "They're not just protecting a person," Eden said, voice barely audible. "They're guarding a plan." Night fell fast. They made camp on a cliff ledge, just beyond the range of sensors. Darabau worked silently to jam outbound signals without triggering any inbound alerts. Bishop crouched nearby, sharpening a combat knife against stone. Eden sat still, the Ember manifest spread across her lap. She drew a line through another name. "Still no contact from Reed?" she asked. Felix answered through the comms. "Nothing since the market pickup. But we intercepted encrypted bursts between Vrail and an unknown relay in the Gulf." "Could be him. Could be nothing," Eden whispered. "It's never nothing." At 200 hours, they breached the perimeter. It took 15 minutes to bypass the outer defenses. Bishop knocked out 2 cameras with timed EMP charges. Eden sliced through the mesh wiring using a thermal blade. They slid into the corridor like phantoms. The inside of the compound was nothing like the outside. Smooth concrete walls, bright white lighting, sterile airflow. This wasn't a bunker. It was a lab. Darabau went straight to the consoles. "Data cores encrypted, military-grade firmware. All of it has Falcon's signature." Eden began the data download, dragging entire clusters into portable storage. Then she froze at one screen. Bishop stepped beside her. "That's not a missile," he said. He said. Eden shook her head, staring. "It's a targeting array. Satellite locked." Darabau leaned in. "You could use that to synchronize global multi-city strikes. Simultaneous precision hits." The lights flickered. "We've got company," Bishop warned. Footsteps, rapid. Eden drew her pistol. "Cover me. I'll finish the pull." 2 guards burst in. Before the first shot was fired, Bishop and Darabau had already dropped them. Alarms wailed. Red strobe lights bled through the room. Eden grabbed the drives. "Move!" They sprinted into the lower tunnels, retracing the exact route they had entered. But at the final corridor bend, someone was already there, waiting. Reed. He wasn't aiming a weapon. He didn't look angry, just exhausted, watchful. Eden raised her gun. "Step aside." Reed's voice was calm, wary. "He knows you're here. He wants you here. Then he's about to be disappointed." Reed slowly held up a microchip. "Take it. Everything's on here. Full schematics, fallback zones, encrypted backups." Bishop's brow furrowed. "Why?" Reed looked directly at Eden. "Because I didn't betray Ember. I infiltrated him. It was the only way to get close. I had to make you believe I flipped. He only trusts the broken." Eden stared at the chip in his hand. It was real. Tangible. Proof. "Scan it. Felix will confirm the encryption. It's Helix's root key. I stole it back." She didn't speak right away. Then slowly Eden lowered her pistol. "We extract together." "One mistake," Reed said, "and you put me down." Darabau grunted. "Gladly." They moved fast, alarms still screaming around them. When they hit the beach, their extraction vessel was already waiting. Autopiloted, drone-cloaked, hidden until the last second. As they boarded, Eden turned back for a final glance. Above the treetops, the fractured triangle symbol burned bright red atop a rising tower. She keyed her mic. "Felix, go loud. Leak the schematics. Spread them everywhere. Hit watchdog networks, whistleblower drops, encrypted press nodes. Let the world see what's coming." "You sure?" Felix asked. "Falcon built this place in silence," Eden said. "Let's drown it in noise." As the boat peeled away from the island, no one spoke. Grim silence held the team. Reed sat alone, cuffed, but he didn't resist. Eden never looked at him. Not yet. They had survived. Again, but this time the world would know. By the time Eden Wolf stepped off the boat and touched mainland soil, the world had already begun to shift. 3 hours earlier, the leak had gone live. Falcon's satellite array schematics, targeting protocols, global strike patterns, and hidden facility layouts hit every major whistleblower channel and encrypted news desk in the world. The cascade was immediate. It went viral within minutes. Defense analysts awoke to red alerts. Shadow agencies scrambled, desperate to clean their fingerprints. And in a private, secure bunker far from the noise, Falcon watched his silence implode. He said nothing. He closed the laptop, stood from his dim office, and gave one order: fall back. Nairobi, 0600 hours. The safe house was no longer safe. Eden's team had been relocated to a NATO-controlled logistics hub, moving under deep cover credentials. Reed remained in custody under 24-hour surveillance by Felix. Eden hadn't spoken to him since the escape from Braxel. Not yet. She had other priorities. Falcon's going to scatter, Dana said. Burn the island, wipe his trail, move fast. He already did, Darabao added grimly. We caught a controlled demolition on Vrael's western node. It's gone. Doesn't matter, Felix said. The leak's been mirrored 37 times. He can't erase it now. But Eden didn't look satisfied. Her eyes were on the board, covered in names, locations, code fragments. She tapped one. This site, R7, it showed up twice in Reed's chip, once as a fallback, once as a legacy access point. You think he's heading there? Bishop asked. No, Eden replied. I think he never left. R7 was a Cold War relic, buried deep into the mountains between Sudan and Ethiopia, a NATO outpost abandoned after the Soviet collapse, officially listed as uninhabitable. Supposedly, Felix muttered, scanning the data. Supposedly, Eden echoed. The data packets had been routed through that zone just hours before the leak. It's live, Felix said, and whoever's inside is shielded behind NATO protocols. Eden didn't hesitate. We go in, all of us. Final push. We end this. Reed, still handcuffed on the bench, looked up. You'll need me. Eden stared hard at him. One mistake, and I pull the trigger. Reed gave a slow nod. Understood. They moved. Two Blackhawks cut through the night under strict satellite silence, completely off-grid. Their escorts, two ghost pilots, nameless, spotless records, shadows behind the controls. In the air, the Ember team reviewed the compound blueprints, 5 levels, reinforced tunnels. The command center buried 300 meters down. We hit the access shaft, breach the core, locate Falcon, Eden instructed. No more escapes. If he's armed, Dana asked, we neutralize. If he runs, we chase. If he fights, we finish it, Bishop added, calm and cold. Eden said nothing. She loaded a single hollow point into her sidearm, chambered it, and locked eyes with no one. Site R7, T+Z, they breached under the cloak of night. No alarms. No guards, nothing at first. The surface level seemed abandoned, old gear caked in dust, rusted overhead lights, empty halls like a forgotten ruin. But the deeper they moved, the cleaner it became. The lights clicked on automatically. Air systems hummed awake. Someone's been living here, Darabao whispered. At level 3, the first shot rang out. A sniper's round, sharp and clean. But Bishop spotted the glint in time and returned fire. A body dropped from the scaffold overhead, wearing the black combat gear of Falcon's crew. No insignia, no noise. Clean kill. Guards are still here, Vance muttered. Minimal, elite. Eden gave a curt nod. They advanced. The 4th level, secured. The 5th, sealed tight. Manual override, Reed said, already moving. I know this lock. His fingers flew across the interface. He bypassed the codes but left the failsafe in place. Felix joined him. They worked fast, threading through encryption like muscle memory. The door hissed open. The lowest level was cold. Blue LEDs bathed the concrete. The walls thrummed with the pulse of servers. At the center, an old command post, upgraded with new tech and harsh edges. Falcon sat inside, unarmed, waiting. Took you long enough, he said. Eden stepped forward, weapon raised. Don't move. He didn't. You leaked my system, he said. Good. The world needed to see how fragile its structures are. You built a war machine, Eden said, then buried it under corpses and lies. I built insurance. You built a god complex. Falcon rose slowly, the team tensed. He raised his hands. You want to shoot me, Eden? Go on. That's why you came. No, she said. I came to dismantle you. A faint smile ghosted across his face. Then let me give you what you really came for. He reached into his jacket. Bishop stepped forward. Easy. But all Falcon pulled out was a flash drive. This is the original, the keystone. Every asset, every name, every trader, it's yours. Eden didn't take it. Why? She asked. Why give it up? His smile faded. Because this world doesn't want heroes. It only remembers those who burned everything down. I tried to be remembered. I failed. So now I give you the ashes. He let the drive fall. It landed at her feet. Do it, he said. End it. Eden stepped forward, picked it up, stared at him, then holstered her weapon. You're not worth a bullet. Bishop cuffed him. We got him, Dana said. But Eden looked unsure. She turned to Reed. Is that it? Reed's voice was low. He's got nothing left. Not without the network. Then the floor shook. A deep, low boom from below. Darabao snapped his head up. Secondary charge. Self-destruct sequence. It's tied to the server core. A kill switch, Felix hissed. Falcon smirked. You thought I'd let you walk out with everything. I gave you a symbol, but the data dies with me. Run, Eden yelled. They bolted. The tunnel groaned. Lights burst. Smoke tore through the corridors. At the elevator shaft, they found it dead. Ladder! Emergency crawl! Vance shouted. They climbed. 10 meters, then 20. Heat surged behind them. Explosions roared. Eden's ribs screamed. Her lungs burned. But she didn't stop. None of them did. They burst through the surface as fire chased them out into the cold night. They collapsed in the dirt, coughing, gasping. Below them, Site R7 burned. A legacy turned to ash. Falcon, gone. No bodies recovered. But Eden still held the drive. 3 weeks later, the Ember Team stood silent in a briefing room in Geneva. The leak had shifted the global game. Agencies were gutted, black budgets exposed, shadow alliances collapsed. But no one knew who started the fire, and they never would. Eden watched the sun rise from a balcony, the world below still trying to make sense of itself. Bishop stood beside her. They want you to speak at the UN, he said. You going? She shook her head. I'm done talking. So, what now? A faint smile tugged at the edge of her lips. Now we find the next one before they start again. Behind her, the shadows moved, but this time they moved with her. 3 months had passed since the world nearly blinked and didn't even know it. The fallout from Falcon's leak came in waves. Denials, probes, cover-ups. Governments quietly rewrote their backdoor agreements. But Ember stayed quiet, hidden, moving in the dark, watching. Eden didn't wait for the world to settle. She moved. In the snow-covered mountains of northern Albania, silence lay thick. Crumbling bunkers, buried under decades of forgotten wars, dotted the landscape. One of those bunkers had been retooled. Fiber optics, routers, encrypted mesh net. Inside, Eden worked alone, fingers gliding across the laptop. Signals bounced off dead satellites. Her new target, a trafficking route masked as a pharmaceutical supply chain. 19 containers, 17 matched ID fragments from the Falcon drive. You think this is one of his surviving nodes? Bishop asked over comms, speaking from a high perch across the valley. If it's not, they're copying his playbook, Eden replied, which means someone picked up where he left off. Great, Falcon dies. Someone else lights the fuse. That's how networks survive. Ideas don't die with the man. Silence. So we dismantle the ideas. A flicker of tension passed across Eden's face. Not quite a smile, more like agreement, in the form of a muscle twitch. We hit the convoy at dawn. Meanwhile, in Marrakesh, Darabao sat across from a man in a linen suit, a former banker, now turned data broker. Nervous, sweating despite the icy cocktail in his hand. I didn't know it was connected to Falcon, he stammered. I thought it was just offshore cleanup, shell companies, real estate flips, stablecoins. Darabao slid a tablet across the table. On the screen, satellite images, shipping manifests, drone video, one transaction, one fake foundation. You funded a weapons crate disguised as cancer medicine, Darabao said coldly. Don't lie to me. The man went pale. Dar leaned in. You're going to reroute the funds, public, traceable. Then you're going to give us names. Private record. And after that? The man asked, voice trembling. You disappear, Darabao replied. Not because we'll kill you, but because they will. The man swallowed hard. Where should I go now? Darrow stood up, brushing dust off his pants. Somewhere no one bothers to follow. Maybe this time, build a real clinic. He didn't look back, just walked off, leaving the man alone with his conscience, and the silence that followed said more than any parting words could. Far from there, in a secluded training village just beyond the outskirts of Ancora, Vance and Dana were systematically shutting down what had once been a covert Ember-style training compound. The cadets, once rigid and proud, had scattered like frightened birds the moment their commanding officers were detained. Uniforms with no insignias were tossed into metal barrels, flames consuming them as if history itself was being erased. Dana methodically flipped through a coded operations manual, her fingers tracing the doctrine that had trained enemies and allies alike. The formation sequences, the breach and clear routines, the silent relay commands. It was all embers, repurposed, bastardized. Vance kicked over a rusted crate. It clanged as it toppled, spilling out several black steel coins onto the cracked concrete floor. The same insignia, the same myth. Dana let out a sigh, long and tired. They worship something they never actually lived through. Vance nodded grimly. Until they do. Together they swept the coins into a burn bag, one more set of symbols returning to ashes. Then they vanished into the shadows again, like they'd never been there. Thousands of miles away, in a dimly lit hotel bar in Munich, Felix Kwan sat across from a whistleblower journalist. The place was quiet. A jazz song played faintly in the background, though neither of them listened to it. The reporter, somewhere in his mid-30s, wore a cautious expression. His phone was off, his eyes stayed sharp. You want me to believe all this came from just one unit? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Felix slid a thick document packet across the table. You don't have to believe anything. Just verify the facts. When it checks out, publish. You have the platform. You've always had the reach and the risk. He paused, voice steady. Your job was never safe. It was just silent. The journalist exhaled, tension lingering. Then he folded the documents and slid them into his coat. I'll vet it. If it holds up, then it holds. They clinked their glasses once, brief and without ceremony. No names were shared, no contact exchanged. Then they disappeared in opposite directions into the Munich night. As dawn broke, Eden stood at the ridge, watching the convoy snake its way into a dead valley below. The trucks were covered with tarps. Dirt bikes circled them, riders armed and alert. Bishop was already in position, moving in from the east. Eden took the northern ridge. At exactly 0700, they struck. Flashbangs first, stunning bursts that cracked through the cold air. Drones followed, mapping every angle. No bullets fired until smoke cloaked their presence. They moved like shadows, calculated, fast, silent. In 20 minutes, the convoy was neutralized, every operative subdued without a single wasted motion. Eden opened the first truck. No weapons, just people. 37 men and women, sedated, jammed together like freight. Bishop swore under his breath. Trafficking, he muttered. This wasn't tactical. Eden's eyes hardened, dark as coal. Falcon's legacy didn't die, she said. It just splintered. They called for an extraction team. Within an hour, helicopters had lifted the victims to safety. Eden stayed behind. At the edge of the battered road, she crouched and pressed one of the old ember coins into the dirt. Not as a tribute, not as remembrance, as a warning. By nightfall, she was back at the outpost. The team linked over a secure relay. Bishop, Darabao, Felix, Dana, Vance. Each in a different place, each chasing shadows of the same fire. We've dismantled 7 cells in the last 12 weeks, Felix reported. But the structure's evolving. They're learning from Falcon's mistakes. No central command, Dana added. Just ideology now. Eden's voice cut through the static. Then we take apart the myth. They all went quiet. We were never supposed to be heroes, Eden continued. We were meant to stop monsters. And that means we keep going. Not for medals, not for headlines, for the ones who never got out. No one argued. Eden closed her laptop. Outside, the snow had begun again. The sky stretched black and heavy, and somewhere in that endless dark, Someone was already gathering the remnants, ready to fan the ashes. But not today. Not while she still had fire left in her. Snow blanketed the pine woods in soft silence. Deep in the Pacific Northwest, far from any signal or city, a woman stepped out of a modest log cabin, a steaming mug in hand. Eden Wolf. Her hair was now more silver than the black. Her spine stooped a little more each season, but her gaze hadn't dimmed. If anything, it had only grown more patient. She placed a single log on the outdoor fire pit, lit it, and sat down behind the slow-burning flame. The cabin had no security cameras, no panic room, no alarms, just a garden, a few books, and the faint tracks of deer in the snow behind the fence. The only thing unusual was the steel box, half buried beneath the porch. Inside that box, a coin, a drive, and a stone triangle, carved with intent. A soft knock broke the silence. A young man stood at the threshold, mid-20s, military cut, posture uncertain, combat in his eyes but nowhere to place it yet. "Are you Wolf?" he asked. Eden nodded. He unfolded a creased paper. "A letter from someone named Reed. Said if I ever got truly lost, I should come here. Said you'd understand." Eden unfolded the letter. 2 lines. "Not all vaults hold secrets. Some hold old beginnings. He's yours now." She looked up at him, then gestured to the bench beside her. He sat, uneasy. She handed him a mug, not coffee, but a blend of calming herbs. "What's your name?" she asked. "Adam." "You carry pain, Adam, but you haven't let it rot you. That's rare." He didn't answer, just stared into the flame. "Reed told me you once commanded something called Ember," he said eventually. "Said after a while you let it die." Eden nodded slowly. "And now?" She looked at him carefully, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Now I teach." Months passed. Adam came every week. He chopped wood, watched the sun move across the ridge. Over time, he stopped asking about missions. He asked about meaning instead. Less about violence, more about silence. Eden never gave speeches. She taught by example. She showed him how to read truth from the body, how to breathe before fear could control you, how to hear what wasn't said. And sometimes as the fire dwindled and stars broke open the sky, she shared stories. Tales of those with no names, cities that vanished. Nights when saving one life came at the cost of a piece of soul. She never said their names, but Adam knew every story was real. Then one spring morning, Adam returned. No smoke rose from the chimney. The cabin door creaked open. Inside, a note. "Gone for a walk. If I'm not back by sundown, the key is buried beneath the oak. You'll know what to do. E." He waited the whole day, but she didn't return. He dug beneath the oak tree, found a cloth-wrapped metal box. Inside, a coin, a drive, a triangle. Years passed. In a makeshift refugee camp in Sudan, a little girl was pulled from the rubble of a collapsed school by a medic who asked for no reward, wore no flag. When he passed a soldier, the man paused. "Where'd you learn to move like that?" The medic only smiled, and later, by firelight, when he rolled up his sleeve to wash, a faint tattoo was visible. A triangle, and 2 letters. AW. The next chapter had begun. No fanfare, no battle cry, but not without purpose. The echo lived on. She slipped past rusted Russian locks, crawling through a mess of roots and rot. Her boots landed softly on damp stone, each step careful and precise. The beam of her flashlight carved a path through the dark, humid air, revealing the decaying walls ahead, covered in layers of stenciled markings. Some fresh, others ancient. Symbols from past lives, old missions, forgotten wars. But one mark stopped her cold. A triangle, sharp, black, scratched into a steel panel with a hand that shook but meant it. It wasn't just a symbol, it breathed. She pulled her weapon instinctively, heart pounding, and stepped further in. Miles away, the rest of the Ember team had no idea she was gone. Not yet. Felix was in Bangkok cleaning up the trail of a silent investor bankrolling private mercenary data hubs. Donna and Vance were deep in Tunisia, burning fake network operating systems, digital ghosts meant to mislead. Bishop had just touched down in London, carrying a microchip filled with names, aliases, and redacted fates. But none of them knew Eden had vanished from the shared net, gone dark without warning. Only Reed knew, and he wasn't responding. Eden's boots echoed as they stepped into the chamber at the heart of the complex. It was circular, low-ceilinged, pulsing with the quiet throb of blue emergency lights. At the center, a terminal already awake, alive. A holographic interface flickered above it. It scanned her face without needing permission. "Welcome, Eden Wolf," it said. Then the files loaded, names, faces, operation trees, schematic overlays, but not falcons, older, deeper. These were embers, from before the fracture, from when the team still believed in each other. She stumbled back, but the system pushed forward, as if time had been waiting for this moment. The words hit like a blow, accessing Echo protocol. Her breath hitched. Echo wasn't real. It was a whispered myth passed between those who dared to think about the end. The idea that if Ember ever broke, if it splintered or turned, one of them would be assigned to erase everything. Everyone. A final safeguard. A mission that couldn't be declined. One that came with no way back. Agent, Eden Wolf, clearance confirmed. The chamber came to life. Panels opened in the walls. Data streamed like veins lit beneath skin. Files categorized as weapon counters, virus neutralizers, personnel dossiers. One by one they loaded. She stared at them in disbelief. Then a shadow moved. You weren't supposed to come alone. It was Reed, alive, exhausted, unarmed. "What is this?" she asked, barely recognizing her own voice. He nodded toward the terminal. "The final loop. You're saying Falcon didn't build this?" "No, we did. Ember did, before the shift, when we still thought the world would need a kill switch, a mirror, a record of everything, every failure, every hidden piece no one was supposed to remember. If this falls into the wrong hands, you called me to destroy it." He paused. "No, I called you to choose." Her voice dropped. "Choose what?" He looked directly at her. "To end Ember, to release it, or to bury it so deep no one could ever use it again." She began pacing, her hands clenched at her sides. The files kept rolling, Darabao in a jungle firefight, Felix setting up layered encryption systems, Dana's cam footage from an op gone wrong, Vance's first takedown caught in grainy, brutal stills, Bishop's classified psych report, and then her own image, staring back at her like a ghost. "They never knew this existed," she murmured. "They weren't supposed to," Reed said. "You were the only one who passed the full sweep. You were always Echo." She let out a low, bitter laugh. "So I was the end built into the beginning." He nodded again. Thunder rolled across the chamber ceiling, distant and low. "Bah, pues amo." She looked at him. "And if I just walk away?" "Then it waits until someone finds it, and next time it won't be you." She turned back to the terminal. The interface now pulsed with three options: delete all records, confirm Echo termination, upload to global node, lock down permanent containment mode. She read the last one twice. "What would you do?" she asked. "Doesn't matter," Reed replied. "I'm not the one holding the match." Eden closed her eyes, breathed. When she opened them, her hand moved. She selected lock down permanent containment mode. The system responded with a single soft chime, then silence. The screens dimmed slowly, a pale light rippling through the steel-lined walls. The data didn't vanish. It didn't escape. It froze, encased in a web of encryption so dense even its creators couldn't find it again. Eden pulled her hand away from the interface. It trembled once, then steadied. "You sealed it," Reed said quietly. "Not for me," she answered. "For them." She turned and walked past him. He paused only a beat before following. Together they climbed the long shaft toward the entryway, where rain pounded the world above. Eden never looked back. And when they emerged into the open storm, the sky above no longer filled her with fear. Far away in London, Bishop froze mid-transmission when her terminal pinged. A single-word code flashed on the screen. Dormant. She stared at it, then smiled, and powered down the system. In Bangkok, Felix stepped off a crowded train, felt the vibration in his jacket. He pulled out the phone, saw the message, and exhaled. His shoulders softened. He dropped the burner into a trash bin without hesitation and walked on. A quiet goodbye. Deep in the Tunisian hills, Dana and Vance were still dismantling a rogue training cell. Dana's encrypted wrist device blinked 3 times, then went black. Vance raised a brow. Dana simply nodded. She did it. Yeah. A pause. Yeah. They said nothing more. They didn't have to. 2 days later, in a small hillside cafe in Valparaiso, Eden sat quietly. A mug of untouched coffee sat cooling in front of her. Across the table, Reed cradled a bruised jaw and a 1,000-mile stare. You think it'll hold? He asked. Only if we do. He watched her carefully. You never told them you were Echo. I didn't have to. They trusted me. That's why it worked. He tilted his head. So, what now? Now I live. She smiled then, small but real. And for the first time since the day Ember was born, Eden Wolf ordered breakfast without scanning every exit in the room. A year passed, then another. The Ember Team faded into myth. Names whispered in broken bunkers and old smuggler chains. Governments tried to replicate them. They failed, because what Eden sealed away wasn't just data, it was belief, brotherhood. The quiet bond forged in fire between people who refused to break even when everything around them did. They never asked for medals, they never wanted thanks. But in the cracks of every forgotten war zone, in every silent rescue, in every buried truth, there was their echo. On a frozen morning in Alaska, a young recruit stumbled across a small coin buried in snow near an abandoned airstrip. No flag, no name, just a triangle and 3 letters, EWW. He pocketed it without knowing what he'd found. Somewhere far away, Eden stood on a cliffside, watching the ocean stretch endlessly before her. No wars left, no orders pending, just wind, salt, and the knowledge that not all ghosts haunt. Some guard. The rain had stopped, and somewhere beyond encrypted networks, covert ops, and shattered oaths, the world kept turning, blissfully unaware that a war had quietly ended. Not with a bang, but with a choice. Eden Wolf had once been the final safeguard, an invisible line of trust buried beneath layers of code names and redacted truth. In the end, she made her decision. Not out of anger, not for glory, but for protection. She sealed the vault. She let Ember die, not in disgrace, but in peace. And what remained? Not the weapons, not the intel, not the plans. What remained was a story, a quiet one, woven into the lives of those who stood between innocence and the darkness no one else dared to face. Bishop, still flying under the radar, now trains rescue medics in war. Her past remained untouched by words, sealed behind quiet gestures and eyes that had seen more than they let on. She never told the stories, not even once. But every patient who found their way to her felt it. The calm certainty in her hands, the quiet command that said, "You are safe now." Felix had become something like a ghost. Not the haunted kind, but a presence that moved through firewalls and encrypted systems, erasing threats before they had names. Now he spent his time buried deep inside nonprofit infrastructures, invisible, repairing their vulnerabilities, shielding them from dangers they couldn't even imagine. No one knew where he was, and that was how he wanted it. He worked in silence, left no fingerprints. Dana and Vance had disappeared from the grid entirely. Vanished not out of fear, but necessity. Some said Dana was last seen in Haiti, coordinating covert medical logistics during a blackout. Vance? A rumor placed him near the Ukrainian border, running supply chains in terrain riddled with conflict. Both reports were unconfirmed. They always were. They never stayed in one place long enough for facts to catch up. Reed? He was harder to pin down. A ghost wrapped in myth. Some swore they saw him in the Montana wilderness, living off-grid beneath a false name. Others whispered he'd taken up residence in a limestone cave somewhere along the Italian coast, unreachable, watching the tides. Maybe he was never meant to be known. Maybe anonymity was always the point. Just a whisper drifting through the cracks of old stories. And Eden. She moved through open-air markets like any other civilian. No escort, no protocol, no shadow in her wake. She answered to no one. The call signs were long gone. Sometimes she paused in quiet corners and wrote in a small journal. Not full entries, just fragments, echoes of thoughts that wouldn't stay caged. To the locals, she was simply the quiet woman with hands that never trembled and eyes that held too much sadness to name. She never offered details, never spoke about where she'd been or what she'd done, and no one asked. They didn't need to. Her presence said enough. Her silence, in its own way, carried weight heavier than any metal. There will be others. The world will always birth new threats, new chaos, new names to remember and forget. But somewhere beneath that noise, the ground now holds a deeper steadiness. A small shift earned not by ceremony, but by those who stood in fire and vanished without applause. No parades, no documentaries, no tearful interviews, just the occasional whisper. The quiet knowledge that once, when no one else would stand in that place, they did. And they didn't move. Not for victory, but for something harder. Sacrifice. Not for glory, but for silence. Not the loudest stories, but the kind most at risk of being lost if we don't hold space for them. So if this story stirred something in you, pause. Not for us, not for clicks or subscriptions, though we're grateful if you stay, but for the ones in your life who carried unseen weight, who smile a little too tightly, who hold the door just a second longer than needed. Maybe they've seen things they can't name. Maybe they chose to protect without expecting thanks. And maybe, just maybe, what they need from you isn't curiosity. It's respect. These are the stories meant to stay alive. So if it moved you, say something. Let us know the moment that hit you hardest. Tell us where you're listening from. We read them all, and if someone in your life would carry this in their chest, share it with them. Help us keep the echoes alive, because the greatest protectors don't always wear uniforms. They walk among us, and they guard the silence.